Hello everyone, welcome to Explaining Sales. In this series of videos, we will explore PowerShell and today we will talk about objects. If you have some programming background and you have worked with objects before, then this video will relatively be easy for you to understand. But if you do not have it, then this video will probably be little confusing for you. But going forward, everything we will learn in future lessons will be heavily reliant on the concepts that we are going to learn in this video. So I think this is the right time to introduce objects to you. So let's begin by discussing what are objects. Now take a second to run get process in PowerShell. You should see a table with several columns. But believe me when I say that these are not all the information available about process. Each process object also has a machine name, a maximum working set size, and so on. There are more than 60 pieces of information associated with a process. So when we run get process, why are there only few pieces of information printed on the screen? Now when we run any command such as get process, in the computer memory, PowerShell constructs a table that contains all the information about those items. For get process, that table consists of something like 67 columns with one row for each process that's running on your computer. Now each column contains a bit of information such as virtual memory, CPU utilization, process name, and so on. Now when running get process, if you specify the name of specific columns that you want to view, PowerShell will only provide these columns, and we will see that later in this video. But if you haven't, the one way to see all the columns is to use convert to HTML commandlet that we have seen in previous videos. Type get process, press tab, it will autocomplete. Convert to dash HTML and out file. .html. Now if you open the file, we see a lot more information that is normally printed onto the screen by PowerShell, because this commandlet does not bother filtering the commands. Instead, it produces an HTML file that contains all of them. In addition to all those columns of information, each table row has actions associated with it. Those actions include what operating system can do with the process listed in that table. For example, the OS can close a process, kill it, and so on. So here is another important concept about pipelines. When you run a command that produces some sort of output, like get process, that output takes the form of a table in memory, and when you pipe the output to another command, the entire table is passed through the pipeline and not the one we generally see on screen. Now time for some notes. PowerShell does not refer to this in-memory table as table. Instead, the following terms are used. Object, this refers to the table row that we have been saying until now. It represents a single thing such as a single process or a single service. Property, this is what we called a table column. It represents one piece of information about an object such as process name. Method, this is what we called an action. A method is related to a single object and makes that object do something such as stopping a service. And finally, collection. This refers to entire set of objects. The in-memory table or simple table is called collection. Now to summarize, collection is a table, the property is the column in that table, and object refers to each row in that in-memory table. So far we have discussed that objects are like in-memory table and PowerShell only shows you a portion of that table on screen. So how do we go about finding what else we have to work with? We use a command called getMember, which lets you learn more about an object. We'll be using this command a lot in the future, so it's important that you become comfortable with this and also remember its alias gm. Now you can use gm after any command that normally produces output. By now you are already familiar with get process. So if we pipe get process to gm, get process, and pipe it to gm, now we get the following result, and notice the name column. This column presents the property of a single process object, and collectively the properties, methods and other things attached to an object are called its members, and that's where the get member takes its name from. Now that's it for the theory part. We will now look at how to work with these objects. As mentioned earlier, methods are actions that you can direct the object to take. For example, a process object has kill method. So in order to stop the process, what we can do is get process. Now the name of the process is right here. My notepad is open, so let's close it. Notepad, and let's call the kill method. This is one way of doing it. Now let's open the notepad again. We can also do it like get process and pipe it to now name notepad, and let's pipe it to stop process. Now let's open it again. Or even more PowerShell way of doing it is just stop process. The name is notepad. So as you can see, there are more than one way of achieving same thing in PowerShell. So practice and use whatever you are comfortable with. Suppose we want to display a list of processes with the most intensive process on the top and the least intensive one at the bottom. Or we want to sort the process in descending order taking CPU utilization as the metric. So what we can do is get process, and let's pipe it to sort object, and the property we will use is CPU. Now let's go to the top. Well, it's not exactly what we are looking for, so let's add the descending parameter. Get process, sort object, property CPU, and the order is descending. Again, in an event where two processes are utilizing equal amount of CPU resources, we can add another metric and use that to sort the process. Now let's use process ID in that case. So get process, sort object, and we will use CPU first. And if two processes are using the same amount of CPU, we want the process ID to be a tiebreaker. So let's add ID there, and the order is descending. Now another useful command is select object, that lets you select specific properties you want that were not displayed by the PowerShell by default, or just select few properties of an object that interest you. Let's see it in action. If we list the contents of the directory, we see the process.html file that we created earlier. This is the default one. We have done nothing with it. Now let's create another one, but this time let's specify the properties we want. We can do that by typing get process, pipe it to select object, and the properties we want are, let's add name, ID, CPU, and PM. Let's pipe it to convert to HTML again. Convert to HTML, and let's name it select.html. Now if we open the select, now if we compare the results, we can clearly notice the difference when we are not using select object and when we use select object. This result was produced by default when we didn't select anything, and this is the new result when we selected the specific properties we wanted. Now you can use the same command if you want a result displayed in the screen. For example, I only want to view the name of running processes and nothing more. I can do this by typing get process, select object, and the property I want is name. Now as you can see, I only got the name of each running processes. Also play around with these commands so that you become comfortable using them. And that's it for this video. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.